I've titled tonight's talk, God's Healthcare Plan. You know, Obama had his healthcare plan, right? And then the Republicans have their healthcare plan. Everyone's got an opinion. Every politician has an opinion how to fix the system. But today we're going to hear about God's health plan, what He has planned for us, what He intended for us. Health insurance, you know, that's the big thing in the news, right? Health insurance. Did you know that health insurance does not insure your health? It doesn't, right? It's like life insurance. Life insurance doesn't make you live longer. It only pays when you die. Just like that, health insurance, it doesn't insure your health. It only pays when you get sick, you see. So true health insurance should preserve someone's health, right? Make it better, make it last longer, make it healthier. And today you're going to see that God's health care plan does just that. You're welcome to take notes on this information if you have a paper and pen. I'd like to put in a disclaimer. I am probably not your doctor. So before we begin, let me put in this disclaimer. The following presentation is general information only. It is not intended to render any specific medical, legal, or accounting advice. For specific health problems, please seek the advice of a competent doctor, lawyer, CPA, neighbor, or mother-in-law. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into the problem. We hear this on the news, right? We hear the heart disease, #1 killer, cancer, stroke, diabetes, all of these things. Look at the numbers. 100 years ago, heart disease killed 12% of the population. In the year 2000, it was up to 45%. Cancer, it used to be 6%. It used to be fairly rare. You know, when cancer would strike a family 100 years ago, they would say, wow, that's strange. Now it's 25%. Now it's almost hard to find a family that has not been touched by cancer. A 400% increase. What does the future hold for us? See, family health insurance costs. In 1987, this is just about 20-some years ago, it made up about 7% of a family's net wages. 7% of their wages would go toward health insurance. In the year 2006, it was up to 17%. This is staggering. In 2008, the United States spent on health care over $30,000 for a family of 4. Now, you might be thinking, boy, that's either almost all of our income per year or some huge fraction of it, right? $2.3 trillion. Now, that's not how much each family pays, but, you know, we're averaging it out. They're taking $2.3 trillion, dividing it by the number of people in America, and for 4 people, that's how much it costs. You don't want to know how much it costs to keep one person in the nursing home per year, you see. One heart attack or transplant. All of that goes into it, and then you divide it by the number of people in the United States, and you come up with about over $30,000 a year. That's coming out of taxes, Medicare, all of that. Your premiums, the employer's portion. The Bible summarizes our problem in this way. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Why is this happening to us? But thanks be to God, in these modern times, God is bringing us back to His knowledge. He's helping us rediscover what He had planned for us. Let's look at man's minimum health care. When you go to the doctor, these are the basic kinds of things you would do on a wellness visit. Okay? You'd come in and get a cholesterol check, see what your heart attack risk is if it's high, right? We do high blood pressure screening, some cancer screenings, check your heart if you're at the right age for it. Vaccinations, that's actually a huge one. Clean water and vaccinations, that makes up over 96% of the increase in longevity over the past 100 years. Clean water and vaccinations alone, 96%. We're going to get into some of those numbers a little later if there's time. High-risk tests for certain people who have other conditions. Maybe if you have a family member who has multiple cancers, then we would want to check those on you. And that's what man's health care is. That's why I call it the minimum health care, because it's the bare bones minimum of what would happen if you went for a checkup. Now let's look at God's maximum health care. How would you like to have 8 doctors working full-time for you every day? And that's what God's health plan does. Nutrition. This all spells out to New Start. The acronym is New Start. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, rest, and trust in God. Okay? So we've got you got your GI doctor on the nutrition, you got your exercise sports medicine doctor, you got your kidney doctor, you got your dermatologist, you got 8 doctors working for you all the time, keeping you healthy, rather than just trying to fix you when you get sick. And best of all, you could not afford 8 doctors. You'd have to be royalty, right, to do that. Best of all, it's free. God's 8 natural doctors are free. Friends, there's so much truth and information to share with you that I've learned over the years, both between Bible study and the practice of medicine. Tonight, we don't have time to go over all of them. I have a separate lecture called New Start, and that goes over all of them. Tonight, we'll just be going over 2 of them, which is nutrition and water, and maybe some other time we can go over the rest of them. Now, you've heard the phrase, we've all heard, you are what you eat, right? Okay. Many people wonder, there's so many diets out there. You could go to a bookstore down in Rivergate, Books A Million, and go to the diet section. Why, there's literally over 100 diets, right, out there? And how am I supposed to know which one is right for me? In fact, there are so many of them, and they're so varied that many of them actually are mutually exclusive, right? You can't have both of them. You can't have low carb and then on the other hand have high carb. You can't have high protein and low protein, you see. So many of them are mutually exclusive, and you know that they can't all be right? Because of that fact. They could all be wrong, right? They could all be wrong, but they can't all be right. So tonight, you're going to learn a tool. You're going to learn God's health plan, and with that, you're going to measure all other diets by it. And then when you go to the bookstore, or when your girlfriend or boyfriend comes up to you and say, hey, I just learned about this new diet, I'm all excited about it. You eat this and you don't eat this. You'll compare that with God's diet, and you'll know whether it's false or whether it's true. Okay? So let's get into that. So, which one is the best for me? Now, we're going to take one step back before we get into this, because we have to lay the groundwork with philosophy. Now, I believe our philosophy drives, ultimately, our behavior. Now, where do you believe we came from? Do you believe we came here because of evolution or creation? Now, there are some here who actually may believe in evolution. There are some others here who may actually believe in both, right? There's theistic evolution and deistic evolution. But we're talking about just straight up any kind of evolution or creation. There's only the two, right? Would you agree that it only comes down to those two? Have you heard of any other alternative explanation of how we got to be here? Okay. Most of the time we can't think of any other, because really it is down to those two. But there are some other belief systems, like the Hindus in India. Okay, the little boy asks his father, Daddy, what is holding up the earth? And he says, why, son, the earth is sitting on the back of an elephant. And then the boy says, well, Daddy, what's holding up the elephant? Well, son, the elephant is sitting on the back of a giant cosmic turtle. Well, apparently the little boy must not have asked any more questions, because naturally your question would be what? What's holding up the turtle, right? So the Hindus believe that the world is held up by an elephant or elephants, and then the elephants are held up by a giant turtle. Actually, it was interesting. There was an incident where they were having a debate on origins, And a little lady stood up and say, because they were mocking this, they were making fun of this and saying, think about it. What's holding up the turtle? They don't have an explanation for it. The Hindus don't have an explanation. And the little lady stood up and said, young man, you're wrong. Because it's turtles all the way down. So turtle upon turtle upon turtle. Okay. Eventually, you got to come to the bottom, right? So ever since 1969, you remember, some of you are old enough to remember 1969, ever since we shot a man to the moon, and they looked back, and there was no elephant, and there was no turtle. It's a nice story if you want to tell your kids the story, but nobody believes it anymore, okay? What about aliens? Did you know that actually some scientists believe this? That aliens came and seeded our planet? It's called panspermia. Okay, they believe because, and the only time this really came up seriously was after Watson and Crick. Do you all remember Watson and Crick? DNA. They discovered the DNA. The two scientists, they got the Nobel Prize for DNA. After they discovered DNA, guess what happened? It just made it exponentially harder for evolution to happen now. See, before, evolutionists thought, well, what's the big deal? They thought we were like clay. So the deer, as it's in the Africa, and the leaves are harder to reach, so it stretches, right? And so all you do is you just squeeze the neck a little bit, and the next generation will be more like a giraffe. And that's how we get giraffes, by deer being squeezed up, right? Now that we know about DNA, the number of mutations it requires to make vertebra that long, not to even get into the heart and the blood pressure required to pump blood all the way up, just the mutations alone, now you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't explain it by evolution, see? So then Crick himself once dabbled with the possibility that, it's too hard. It's too hard to make evolution happen now that we understand DNA and genes. So maybe aliens sprinkled some protein on the earth and got the whole ball rolling. You could see that they're getting desperate, right? Why? All you're doing is you're just pushing off the problem to another planet or another solar system or another galaxy, right? So we know that no one takes that seriously. If you go up somewhere like Harvard or somewhere where they're having a debate of origins, and they're debating creation versus evolution, and then if you went up there and said, well, yeah, you're forgetting, have you considered it could be aliens? They would laugh you out of the room one day. You agree now. It's all down to creation or evolution. There is no other alternative. Let's start with that concept. Tonight, you're going to learn that the diet, remarkably, is the same for both. So I don't care whether you're an evolutionist or a creationist or somewhere in between, the diet's going to be the same. Now, I hope I can persuade you to be a creationist, but even if you don't, at least you'll be healthy. So we're down to evolution or creation. Now, this is the diet sheet that I hand out at my office for some patients who want to be healthier. And on the left is better, and on the right is worse. Obviously, everyone knows water is good for you, right? Water is the best thing to drink. No one would argue with that now. Did you know that wasn't actually the fact? That wasn't well known 150 years ago. You remember they were doing leeches? When they were doing leeches, you know what they would do? They would not let them drink water. If they wanted anything, they would give them a salty beverage. Okay? They're getting dehydrated, right? With the leeches sucking off the blood. They would either give them beer, wine, or a salty drink. Crazy, right? We would look at that and say, that's crazy. That would be malpractice if you went to the emergency room and they did that to you now. Nowadays, we know that water is the best thing to drink, and then all the way down. The worst thing to drink, now this is generally for my weight loss patients who want to lose weight. The worst thing for weight gain is diet drinks. Anything with artificial sweetener. So if it tastes sweet in the mouth, but it says no calories, that's going to make you bigger than their sugared counterpart. So Diet Coke causes more weight gain than regular Coke. Diet tea causes more weight gain than regular tea. Crystal Light causes more weight gain than lemonade, okay? Every study done proves that. And it's not just in humans. You know how I have some patients say, they're aficionados, they say, oh, doc, I can tell Diet Coke, the difference between Diet Coke and regular Coke. Okay, so maybe on the experiments, maybe on the studies, the patients, they tasted and thought, hey, I'm on the Diet Coke half. Because they split the people up into halves, right? Diet Coke and regular Coke. So they said, well, maybe psychologically they said, oh, I'm on the Diet Coke side. I can afford to eat more, and so maybe that's why they gain weight. They did it on monkeys, and they did it on rats. Now you have to wonder, who are the rats, right? But they did it on monkeys and rats who had never tasted Coke or Diet Coke before. So they don't know the difference, you see. It panned out on every single one of them, every single one of those studies. So just accept the fact that diet products cause more weight gain than the regular products. Now remember, I may not be your doctor. If you have certain medical conditions, do your research and then go see your doctor and ask him or her for advice how to go about that, because some people don't want to drink too much sugar, right? Especially diabetics. But in general, diet drinks cause more weight gain than regular drinks. Now, this is the food section. The best foods on this chart is fruits, and then vegetables, grains, beans, and nuts. Okay? Now, you might say, well, Dr. Yim, how did you come up with that chart? You just make it up, or just what you happen to eat, or you just get it off the internet? No, you're going to learn where this chart comes from, and it's substantiated and proven by both creation and evolution. Okay, let's take evolution first. We're going to play devil's advocate, right? Pardon the pun, devil's advocate. We're going to take the side of evolution and say that, okay, if I'm an evolutionist, who is my nearest animal relative? Who did I evolve from? Yeah. You can answer. I'm going to ask some questions throughout, and you can answer. And at the end, we'll have a question and answer where you can ask me some questions. But right now, I'll ask you, and feel free to answer. Apes, right? And specifically, the chimps. But did you know it doesn't matter whether you pick which ape, chimp, orangutan, or gorilla? They're all apes, and their diets are remarkably similar. Okay? Now, so Charles Darwin's kin, not my kin, but Charles Darwin's kin are chimpanzees, okay? So, what do chimps drink? I'm going to give you multiple choice to make it easier. Coke, tea, Red Bull, or water? That's right. You got 100% so far, 1 out of 1. Okay. Now, what do chimps eat? Burgers, pizza, fried chicken, or fruits and leaves? Okay. In fact, they eat so much fruit. Did you know that they eat 70% of their diet is fruit? And 25 to 29% are flowers and leaves and some seeds. 1% is insects. Now, evolutionists say it took 30 to 60 million years to evolve the monkeys and apes. It took 30 to 60 million years so that the diet and the drinks that they're on right now, they are fine-tuned for peak performance. You know, they're climbing up 100-foot tall trees every day foraging for food. That's serious stair climbers, right? 60 million years to evolve this system where they're on this diet that of fruits and leaves and water that makes them their dental system, their digestive system, their cholesterol system, their carbohydrate metabolism system, what causes cancer and what doesn't, so that they are at peak performance with this diet do we really think that the first human that evolved out of that ape, because humans have only been around 500,000 to a million years, they say. Okay, 60 million years of that. And do we really think that the first human that evolved out of that ape, dragging his wife behind him with the club in his hand, going to his cave, all of a sudden he needs a heavy grease and meat diet? It would fly in the face of evolution, which says that you have to have slow, gradual mutation changes. It would take probably 30 to 60 million years to reverse that diet so that now man will thrive on high-fat and grease diet. Do you understand that concept? We haven't been around long enough, if you believe in evolution, to have made that switch. We're still on fruits and leaves. In fact, they eat so much fruit, they're not called vegetarian, they're not called carnivores, they're not called omnivores, they're called frugivores. And that's a term that Charles Darwin called them. In fact, there's some evidence that maybe he kind of ate some of that kind of food because he thought, well, if I'm related to the chimps, might as well eat what the chimps eat, right? So, according to evolution, is this chart true? Yes, it is. I put that vertical line there to separate things that they don't eat from things that they do eat. And it's in order of how much they eat. Fruits on the highest because that's what they eat most of. Vegetables, right? Flowers and leaves. Okay. So according to evolution, and then we had the water, according to evolution, this chart, you need to eat this way, don't you? How about if we're creationists? How about if we believe that God made us? If we believe that God created us, we believe in creation, we believe God created us, that means we believe that God designed us. Then that means we believe God designed our body to eat something. Okay? The Bible has a question, what are we to eat? It was a rhetorical question that Jesus said as he was preaching his Sermon on the Mount. What are we to eat? And Genesis 1:29 tells us what God designed. Immediately after God created man, he told him what he wants him to eat. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. Okay? That was the original diet. What are we to drink? Now a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. So according to creation, what are we designed to eat and drink? Drink water, right? And eat seed-bearing plants and fruit with seed in it. Now, a very short little Bible lesson is when the Bible says fruit, and we have several pastors here, and I'm sure you'll vouch for it. When the Bible says fruit, it doesn't mean just the narrow definition of fruit that we have, like there's fruits, vegetables, beans, grains, nuts. When the Bible says fruit, for example, like your children are the fruit of your loins, right? When the Bible says fruit, it's anything that can recreate itself, that can procreate. So, according to God, is this chart right? Fruit. Well, that's the easiest one. Is fruit fruit? Did God say you could eat it? Yes, God says you could eat that. Vegetables. Are vegetables plants that grow in the field that bear seed? And the answer is yes. In fact, that's the only way you can get your vegetable garden growing is you have to get seed and plant it in there, right? So God says you can eat vegetables. Whole grains. Do whole grains have seeds in them? Yes, they do. In fact, the thing is a seed, isn't it? A corn kernel, that is a seed. Brown rice kernel, it is a seed. Whole wheat kernel, that is a seed. Oat, it is a seed. God says you can eat that. Beans. Do beans have seeds in them? They are seeds, right? Just think of Jack and the Beanstalk. Put it in the ground. Next morning, plant comes up, right? So beans are seeds. God says you can eat them. Nuts. Do nuts have seeds in them? Again, they are seeds, right? Squirrel in the winter. Digs a hole, puts it in there, tree comes up. God says you can eat it. Now, so if you have, we've proven this diet now by both creation and evolution. Remember we started off at the beginning saying there are no other alternatives, right? There are no other alternatives. So I've heard it said that if you don't have a good cook, you'd better have a good doctor. So who's more important, your doctor or your cook? Your cook is more important because prevention is always better than the cure, isn't it? Those of you who cook at home, whether you're male or female, take note. This is the way to keep your family healthy. Do not, I'm in the healthcare field. Do not trust the government. Do not trust the doctors. Do not trust the hospitals. Do not trust the healthcare system to keep you healthy. That's your personal responsibility. Because God didn't give your body's the temple of God. God didn't give that to the government, and He didn't give it to the doctor. He gave it to you. Your body is your responsibility as a good steward back to God. So, according to God, just out of curiosity, did God give the animals a diet too? And surprisingly, He did. So what should Charlie the chimp eat? Genesis 1:30, the next verse after God tells man what to eat, He says, "And to all the beasts of the earth I give every green plant for food." All animals were to eat plants at creation. If you think about it, it makes sense. You can't imagine animals tearing each other up in heaven, right? Sometimes we might have a problem with this. In fact, this was one of the reasons that Darwin moved to the other side. He was studying to be a pastor, a theologian. He jumped ship and went to the other side because he could not believe that God would create a world where animals, the strong ones, would kill the weak ones. And sometimes we struggle with that too, right? We say, well, what about these animals like mosquitoes? Their only purpose is to suck our blood, inflict pain on us, prevent us from enjoying the summer evening, right? Did you know that mosquitoes didn't always have to do that?